In this video, I'm going to show you how to bake in your animation keyframes in your blend shapes, as well as working with some of the fundamental things you need to look out for. So let's get started. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and bake out our animation in here and get it ready for Unreal 4. There are a few things I do want to point out real quick and emphasize. Whenever you are creating your blend shapes and rigging your model, you want to make sure your model's completely clean before you do any of those. And because you'll run into trouble when you export it out to Unreal, it will actually ignore your animation and take it in as a static mesh. And we don't want that. We want this to be recognized. So you want to make sure all of your history is clean on your model before you set in your blend shapes, before you rig it. All right, so let's go and do our blend shapes. Let's actually take a look at what we have. We have the beginning, we have the middle, and then we have the extreme pose, which is like the ultimate melt right there, which sounds like a sandwich. Not really in this case. So we want to be able to actually control our timeline too. So when we do these animations, we want to have them play back accordingly and look really good. So we'll go to our animation preferences on the bottom here, right next to our auto keyframe toggle. Click on that guy. It'll bring us to the time slider options. Make sure it's set to 24 frames and also continuous, so it continually loops and you can catch any problems that you run into. Hit save once you set that. It's very important that you do so. All right, so we got that all set up. Let's go and animate. So on our time slider, we're going to select our blend shape node. It actually activates and goes directly to our blend shape. The only reason mine is red right here because of previous animation. So now what we'll do is set our initial or neutral keyframe right there. And then we'll go up to like 40, and we'll set another keyframe right in the middle, key that. And then we'll go up to like 80. I guess in this case we'll do 80. I'll get rid of this old keyframe. He's old. Delete. Goodbye, jerk face. And we'll go ahead and key this all the way up to the top. There we go. So there's our first initial keyframe. So now we're going to blend our keyframes here. And you never want to start where you left off when you're using a blend shape. Because good animation needs to overlap, especially if there's two different actions. We have two different actions going on. So that way it doesn't look like a robot or doesn't look very canned. We want to make it look fluid. So this is our melting ice, and we need to make it look believable. So to do that, we're going to actually start our first initial keyframe on 40. And I'm going to key that for the second one. Then we're going to go up to 80. We're going to bump him up in the middle. We're going to key that. And then we're going to go up to like, I don't know, 110. And we'll pull him up to the top, and we'll key that. There we go. So a nice little blending animation. So it doesn't just kind of stop. And I'll show you how you can tweak that out in Unreal 4 if you realize, hey, you know what, I need this to look different. And I'll show you how to tweak that with the animation settings. All right, so we got this all set up. Now, anytime you want to shuffle through your keys, and these are things that are known for animation, but I want to point this out for those that are maybe new for animation in Maya. You can actually go to the greater than or less than key, and the greater than or less than key will actually shuffle you between your animation keys. Pretty nice. If you need to duplicate a keyframe, which you saw me mess with before, you can middle mouse drag, and you can actually go ahead and set a keyframe for that right there just by dragging across, and it'll actually duplicate it automatically. And right click, you can hit delete, and you can also copy paste your keyframes as you go. Now, as I'm doing that, say all of a sudden we realized we wanted it to be shorter or longer animation. If you hit the shift key and you hit the right mouse button and drag across your timeline, you're going to get two sets of yellow arrows. The outer one squishes the timeline to make it shorter or faster. You can squish it or extend it. And the middle one allows you to shuffle it in the timeline itself. So it'll actually grab it as a group. It's actually kind of nice. Let me undo that real quick so you can see some of the power that you have on the timeline to quickly go ahead and change things. All right, so we got that first two keyframes set in. We need to get that last one in. So let's go where we left off at, and I'm kind of get this a little bit overlapping. So I'm going to set this to like 65 will be our first initial keyframe for that. And then right around we'll go to 90, and we'll move this guy up to the middle, and we'll key that. And then right at 100, we're going to move it up to the top and key that. Now you'll notice it's getting a little too sharp. So what we can do is right at the very end, turn down the first keyframe because they're conflicting a bit. And you'll get that sometimes. And I don't care what you create. It's all these, you can create anything you want with the files that I give you. But when you do that, just make sure you take into account if some of these blend shapes do conflict with each other, and they will. It just kind of happens. It's one state versus another state. So you can go in there and just tweak it out and change it any way you want, or even make a blend shape to correct it. Now, right now, it looks like an inverted ice cream, but we're going to fix that by animating our bone. So let's go and grab that bone and animate him into position. So his initial keyframe, we're going to set S right there. So right at 40 when he starts, I'm going to move him down just a little bit and hit S. And then we're going to go up to 80, gets a little bit more dramatic right there. And we're going to move him down a bit here and hit S. And if you want, you can even move him a little bit forward, a little bit off to the side if you want. It's up to you. It's pretty much going to be your guys' file once we hand it over, and you can do whatever you want to be creative. And then right at the very end, we're going to move that all the way to the bottom and get that set like right there and move it maybe a little bit forward this way and just have some fun with that. Hit S, and then we can now play it back and kind of see what we get. I can slide through or just hit play. So you kind of melt. And let's go and make our last one. When you're making your blend shapes, you want to make sure you have that bone in there. It has to have a bone to be able to export out. So we have our last one here. Let's go and select him real quick. Oops, too far. There we go. Let's go and select him. And we'll set our first initial keyframe. He has an old keyframe in here, so let's go and ditch that guy. Don't need him. And let's go and select and key our neutral position. We're going to right around, let's say 55. We'll get our first initial keyframe set kind of in the middle. And then right around maybe 120, we can set our last initial keyframe and key that. So we're pretty much going to get this kind of effect going on. Both kind of melting. Pretty cool. So now what we need to do, we need to actually export this out the door. And to do so, it's actually super easy. So what we'll do is grab our geometry, shift select our bone. And we first need to bake it. So let's go and bake it. Now you can bake with the export, but I don't like to do that personally. I like to actually be in charge of the baking to make sure it went really well instead of having the exporter do it. So we're going to do bake simulation. And it grabs all of that information on that guy and bakes it really nice. So with that set up, let's go and bake the other one that we did, our animation here. And we'll select the bone, shift select the GL. You can even hit select here if you want, but it's not going to really matter because we do have to select these when we bake. So let's go ahead and go to keys, bake, simulation. There we go. We got two bakes all ready to go. We're just going to export one from now because you'll get the idea. Later on, we'll import the other one as we need. So let's go and grab this guy here. Let's go and send him out the door. So we're now going to go in here and export selection with these guys both selected. And we're going to set it as an FBX. And you can pull down your slider to choose what you want. I'll do ice top in this case and save. I'll say yes. And smooth groups, yes. Smooth mesh, yes. Animation, yes. Bake animation, yes. And you'll actually see your time line here, so you can set that accordingly. You have skins, blend shapes, all that seems to be good. And skeleton definitions, everything seems to be great. Now, if you run into any problems with versions, because different versions of FBX will give you trouble. If you have an older one and you have like maybe a newer Unreal or older Unreal, it'll tell you, hey, this is not going to work. You can always change it here and try it again. So let's go and export that out. Cool. So he's out the door, no errors. So the next thing we're going to do is look at some advanced materials. We're going to look at the animation editing first up and look at all the other materials and things that we can do to make things look really great. That's it.